All of us go through changes in our lives, and often it is the catalysts that catapult us into the next level of growth. Hi, my name is Sheng, and welcome to my channel, where I share ideas and tools that help us become the best versions of ourselves. Today, I want to share with you the 3 stages of growth that I've gone through, as well as the lessons that I learned to become a more holistic, more resilient, and fulfilled human being. These 3 stages are self-awareness, philosophy, and poetry. Number 1 is self-awareness, which I consider to be the building block of all growth, be it personal or professional. Because if you're not self-aware, eventually you're gonna hit roadblocks with life and the world. Without self-awareness, we're not able to take advantage of our strengths, mitigate our weaknesses, deal with the people around us effectively, generously listen to understand others, as well as to take the steps towards improving ourselves over time. All of that requires self-awareness. For me, I was lucky enough to get multiple catalysts within self-awareness. The first one actually happened in the 4th grade in elementary school. So I grew up as a pretty rambunctious kid, a pretty bad kid, just, causing a lot of trouble for my teachers, the adults, my parent, my mom especially. And I spent most of my lunchtimes in detention. From like 3rd grade to 4th grade, I was constantly, every single lunchtime. And I remember this one afternoon, I was actually really sick of just, facing that wall in the cafeteria and looking at the clock for lunchtime to end. And I decided to run an experiment to literally just be quiet and not bother people and not be annoying that afternoon, right? And something miraculous happened, which is no one bothered me back. Nobody told on me. Nobody went hey, Mrs. whatever teacher, Sheng's freaking pulling a chair underneath me. It was peaceful. It was really peaceful. And I didn't get in trouble, right? So it was such an interesting contrast that I decided to run this experiment again the next day, which turned into a week of recurrent results, then extended into a month, and before I knew it, it was 4 years. And throughout that time, I became kind of like an extroverted, want to pick on everybody as well as start fights, to someone who was very quiet, very reserved, and almost like a loner of sorts. And it wasn't until 8th grade, middle school, that I got pulled into drama club, and then I was recruited for the school play, which then I got the lead role in Oscar Wilde's Importance of Being Earnest. I was earnest, and I had a ton of lines to read. And what I discovered is that being an actor is fantastic for self-awareness, because you actually, in order to be someone else, you actually have to be aware of who you are first, and then take on a different persona in order to step into what you need to be as this character, to be in character. And this new level of self-awareness really helped me throughout the rest of high school. And then the next revelation happened after I read Dale Carnegie's When Friends Influence People. And this is definitely a classic. I think most of you have heard of it or read it. It was very influential in my life because it suddenly gave me words to describe how I was starting to feel and starting to interact with people. Not only that, it gave me some tips like, hey, you want to smile more or listen more in order to be a bit more, inviting, since I naturally have a mean face. And I remember, throughout high school and sometimes during college, if I didn't want to be bothered, I would just basically have this resting bitch face go through campus, and everybody will give me like a 1 meter or 3 feet space. It's kind of silly to talk about it now because it's so second nature to me, but at the time it was like, and of course, self-awareness, never really ends. As long as we are learning more about ourselves, our self-awareness is developing. That's part of personal growth, right? So hopefully it never really ends, but these are some of the catalysts. So that was the first stage. The second stage is philosophy. And it all started in college when I had to choose my majors, and I ended up getting a dual degree in business and legal studies. And I would argue that the latter, legal studies, is way more useful now than the business degree, right? From a fancy program or school, because it gave me a way to think, like how to think, right? Frameworks, as well as introduction to the vocabulary of philosophy, the brilliant thinkers of, throughout the ages. And legal studies is not law. It is unlike a JD, which is a practice of law, legal studies is about the philosophy of law, why it exists, why something actually is, comes into being. So with this, I had a textbook understanding of how to actually determine what is the true nature of something. Like, for example, I always say that the nature of a business, of our company, is its business model, right? These are some of the things that philosophy helped me to train my mind to think in a more objective way, to also be aware of my own cognitive biases when I'm making decisions. So it was very practical. It was also kind of textbooky as well, right? And there's another side to philosophy that I didn't really uncover until I went to London, when I did my MBA, when I left the country for the first time in my adult life. I mean, moving from Shanghai to US and count, because I was 7 years old. And suddenly in London, I was bombarded by new people, new situations, relationships that were turbulent, projects that were stressful, that were time-consuming, that were soul-sucking at times as well. A lot of hard decisions, as well as disappointments. I think it was the disappointments of some relationships I had been part of, toxic ones, right? As well as my career, because towards the end of my London days, I realized that I wasn't going to make Forbes 30 under 30. My time was up. I was like 28, going on to 29 essentially, coming back to US. All of these things made me seek for a solace from all of this, right? Not just solace, but a way to deal with all these stressors of life. And I remember picking up Marcus Aurelius's Meditations one day at a bookstore, and I started reading it. And in it, I found the words, the ideas, the emotions even from the Roman emperor, how he dealt with his own existence, his circumstances, the way that he dealt with public image, as well as reputation, which has always been such a big deal for me. With him, I found a new way, emotional understanding, emotional kinship with philosophy. For the first time ever, I could see how it can emotionally support me, not just in a practical way, in business, at work, at school, or even textbook understanding just to sound smart. It was practical in a new way. And even now, I still continue to read new sources. There are modern philosophers like Niantic Labs, the author of Anti-Fragile and Black Swan, who is also basically a modern Stoic, by the way. And there is constantly learning of new ways to think. And I think that is so critical, because as our world produces more information, more knowledge, it's actually impossible to keep up with that, right? That pace of knowledge creation and discovery. I think that it is increasingly more important to actually know how to think rather than what you know, right? What you absorb. In order to make sense of all this information that's flowing into us, so that we're actually able to make better decisions as human beings, as citizens, as well as, to take care of the people around us. And then the third one is poetry. It is hopefully not the final one, but it is the most recent addition to my three-tiered pyramid of self-development and growth. Poetry, to me, is about describing the indescribable, which is most of human experience. Most of what we actually experience and go through life, it's actually really not describable using words, right? And poets are people who dedicate their entire lifetimes, their entire careers to trying to capture our experiences, the things that we can't even begin to describe. They capture it into words. They essentially map out our existence in language. And why is that important? Well, for me, I didn't really, one day pick up a book of poetry and go, hey, this is really cool, right? There was a catalyst, and this catalyst was a really bad breakup towards the end of 2019. And it was definitely all my fault. Not only that, it really revealed all of the things that were wrong with me over the years that had accumulated, right? The breakup is a symptom, not the cause, which made me start, digging, right? And what I did was I actually started reading the books that my ex-partner had read and were very influential to her, because I always think that in order to understand someone, it's very helpful to actually just read what they have read or watched what they have done and basically retrace their steps, right? That is actually the best way to understand somebody. It's very time intensive, so you would only do it for people that you care, right? And two of the books I picked up were from Rainer Maria Rilke, the poet, as well as David Whyte, another poet. And in their words, I realized just how deficient I was in the vocabulary of emotions. And then I realized that so many of the miscommunication, the conflicts, were the result of me not having the words to even describe how I feel. And if I can't describe how I feel, then I can't even address them myself, much less, resolve it with another person. And also not appreciate the other person enough, right? By verbalizing it. So I took time off in order to, start gaining that vocabulary. And in the process, I gained a certain level of vulnerability as well, because I suddenly knew how to convey my emotions to people. And at first it was very scary, right? In order to describe how you feel to someone who is so logically oriented, so rational, it was scary first. But like any muscle, right? Like going to the gym, things get a little bit easier, you get stronger at it as you use it. It never gets completely easy or effortless, at least not with me. But I think I've gotten better with it. And as a result, my relationships have definitely improved because I've been able to pinpoint, issues before they really blow up. I'm able to diffuse the keg, so to speak, as well as really note the things that I love and appreciate about the people around me. So all that is to say that the three of these things combined, self-awareness, philosophy, and poetry, together they have made me a more holistic, a more resilient, and more fulfilled human being. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities to incorporate this into all of our lives in many ways. So these are the three that has been really influential for me. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. The sun is setting behind me, so I'm gonna start a fire and get everything going. This is gonna be one of the last opportunities that I have to essentially do a bonfire in San Francisco on Ocean Beach before the season ends. The next couple of days are gonna be warm and the last remnants of summer as well. I hope you enjoyed this footage from the beginning. And as always, have a great rest of the day wherever you are, and take care, and see you next time very soon. Bye now.